All right, good afternoon, everybody. So today we are going to be talking about irrigation, and specifically irrigation on fruit trees, because it's going to be a little bit different than your normal landscaping. So I'm going to go over the system that I've put here, and I'm going to go over the trees and kind of show you how they've kind of qualified themselves over this last week of having them on irrigation. Now, what I'd like to say first off is I used to hand water all of these trees, and it's just become a little bit of a burden on me just because I've gotten so busy that it would be nice to have a couple of these trees at least on irrigation, if not all of them. So I had a couple little special situations to deal with, and of course anytime you put on irrigation it's going to be that way. You're going to be dealing with whatever specifically is going on at your house, but I'll give you kind of a general idea of what I did and what I've got going on here, because it works really well for these fruit trees. It works a lot better than I actually thought it was going to. So I'm going to start kind of start at the very beginning here. I'll start at where I hooked onto my main line. And for irrigation, volume and pressure are two things that are very important, and I'll kind of go over a little bit of those too. So let me show you how I have this on my main feed. Okay, so my main feed for my whole house is 3/4 inch, and that's really kind of important because you want to have the volume necessary to give the trees what they're needing. If this is 1/2 inch, you've reduced the volume quite a bit, so you'll have to let the watering system go longer to give you the same amount of volume that a 3/4 system like this would give you. So I'm coming right off my main here in the back. I've got this teed off. It goes up to a hose bib, a 4-way hose bib, and then I've got it so that it now goes down, and then it goes through a 3/4 quarter turn ball valve. So this is 3/4, it doesn't reduce it down any, and then it goes right into 3/4 PVC pipe. And I wanted to do it all in PVC because I didn't want to do this multiple times. I wanted to do this once, call it good, be done with it, and never have to mess with it again. So I wanted to do it all rigid. So I've got this so that it comes out of the main, goes through a valve so I can shut off the irrigation system if I need to do any work or repairs on it. Then I've got this so that it runs the 3/4 PVC. It runs behind my washer and dryer, comes out here, goes along the chimney back against the wall, runs right against the wall so it's protected, turns the corner here, and then it goes that way behind this row of trees that are here. So I've got this row that I've irrigated, so that main line comes and it feeds into this irrigation box that I put here, and I've got 3 valves. These are 3/4 valves, and each one of these runs a section. So the section that's up here by the house is run off of 1 valve, and then the trees that I have along my espalier wall, those are split amongst 2 valves because there's just so many trees. So there's 24 trees there, so I've got this split so that it's got 12 on 1 valve and 12 on the other valve so that everything is equal. So the main feed comes in and it feeds this manifold along the back, and then the manifold feeds each one of these valves. So now each one of these valves acts as more or less a hose spigot, so that when the timer kicks on the solenoid, it opens the valve, and then that section of your yard gets water. So yeah, one of these runs up against the house, 2 of these out to the yard, and the 2 that go to the espalier, I've just got those run underneath the driveway here over to the trees so that you don't see any of the piping. All the piping is hidden except what is in the actual well itself, and I don't mind seeing it in there because then I can kind of make sure everything's going the way it's supposed to be going. And then I've got the 3 valves. I put them in this valve box right up against the house. here so that everything's nice and clean and tucked in and out of the way. To kind of go over these valves, so I like these Rainbird valves. These are just straight valves. These don't have the anti-siphon. These guys are just straight. But what's nice about these is these have a pressure control knob, which allows you to now control the pressure on all the valves on that run. So say if I've got 12 on this row against the house, then I can, if the pressure is too high, depending on what spigot or emitter that I'm using, well then I can just turn down the pressure on this valve and it turns down the entire line all at once, which is really, really nice, nice feature. And then I've got heads on each one of them, which are individually, you can dial them in individually. So now it's even more tunable to exactly what you're wanting. The other thing that I've been using is these push fittings. So these 3/4 inch, they make these in a T and in a coupler and in a 90. And what's nice about these is no glue is required and you don't have to wait for anything to cure before you can turn the pressure on and use it. You can just use it immediately. So these are like Lego blocks. You just cut the pipes to the size you're wanting and then they just slip fit, just slip right into these T's and these fittings and you're done. And what's nice about that is, say like these valves, like let's say I had a valve go bad, well then you have to unscrew them because they're screwed into the valve. So normally you would have to cut that out and then re-glue in a new piece. But with these come with a key and you can insert the key to release the pipe and then just unplug it and put in a new valve and just plug it right back in and you're off to the races without having to worry about cutting and gluing and extra pieces and whatnot. So this system is very, very flexible and it's very quick to put together because like I said, it's just all just clicking pieces together to make it fit. So this irrigation system, once I got it kind of planned, it went in really fast. Like I got all these three runs in one night after I had it all laid out because I didn't have to wait and glue and whatnot. The other nice thing about these push fittings is that they swivel. So if you have something and you don't have it quite clocked the way you want it to, well then you can just swivel that valve or whatnot to the position you want it to be in. That's very important when you come to these emitters because if you've ever glued a whole bunch of these together in a long run, if you're off just a hair by the time you get down to the end, then that means that this one could be off quite a few degrees. So you started with it straight and by the time you got down to the end, well, that other one's off just a hair, so it's shooting up in the air or it's shooting down where you don't want it to be. What's nice about these is it swivels. So see, I can swivel this emitter up to whichever direction that I'm wanting it to be. And then these are directional. So what I used on the emitters up against the house is I use these, they spray half. So they're a half sprayer and they're a shrub sprayer. So they're gonna keep everything flat against the house and then spray it in this half circle, which happened to be absolutely perfect for these wells because they're a half circle. So now I can dial down the pressure so that it stays perfectly within this half circle and it's gonna get everything wet in this area, which is very important for fruit trees, is to cover their whole root zone and not necessarily just have a bubbler up here at the trunk watering those roots. That's okay when the tree is small, but as the tree gets larger, like those roots are everywhere and so you have to water a larger area. So what's nice about these is these have a direction on them. They have got a little half turn direction, and if you've got that off just a hair, well then you can swivel this too and point it the direction you want it to because it's in that same coupler, which allows you to move it. So now everything is completely movable and tunable, and this has a pressure controller on it also, so I can control the pressure on this spigot on this exact tree. Okay, so that's very nice about these fittings and this system that I discovered, because now you can move and flex all your joints together and get everything perfect without having to worry about everything glued up and rigid, and it's a pain in the butt. Okay, so that's the system, that's the valves. These are the valves that I used, and the PVC is 3/4 PVC, and then I've got the different emitters depending on what I'm doing, okay? So in this particular case, I wanted the sprayers and the pipe, the PVC pipe, to be right up against the house. And so it would be spraying away from the house. So that is why these half sprayers were perfect, because they spray this entire section of this. So let me go ahead and turn this one on. So you guys can see how this comes off. Let me pause it 1 second here because I got to go turn off the other hose. Okay, there we go. I had to turn off the hose or I wasn't getting my full pressure on my emitters here. So you can see exactly how this works now. And you can see I rotated this one so he's spraying out of the well, right? So now I can just grab him, just rotate him back down to where he's supposed to be. Now, you see he doesn't spray the house, so it keeps the house dry. He's spraying away from the house, but he's spraying enough to fill this area. And it's coming out pretty good volume-wise too. I don't know if you guys can see or hear that volume-wise, but that's a pretty good amount of volume that's coming out of that. Because basically what I wanted to do was replicate me hand watering these. And what's nice about this is in about 10 minutes at this spray, these will actually fill all the way up. This well will fill all the way up to the very, very top here, and these will shut off within that 10-minute period. Whereas before, if I was hand watering, it would take me 10 minutes to fill up 3 trees by hand. So this is way more efficient. It's covering way more trees in that same amount of time period because it's just coming out of a smaller little orifice there. So you're able to now spread the volume of water amongst these trees, and each one get the appropriate amount of water that they need. So basically I have it so that each one of these, like I said, fills up the well. And then they shut off. So it's getting a really nice deep soaking every day, and it only takes 10 minutes and it covers these trees. So that is the shrub sprayer in a half pattern, and that worked really well for this particular application, which was these trees that are up against my house in those half wells. So see, this situation works really well. Okay, so let me talk about this other side. So let me shut these valves off. Let me turn one of these on. You can do these manually too. These are set to a timer, but you can do these manually. Okay, now let's go take a look at these. So this is a little bit of a different system. So the way this works is, these I couldn't put the emitters behind the trees like I did up against the house, because I planted these trees literally touching the metal of the espalier wall. Okay, so I didn't have any room in between here to run a pipe. So I had to come up with something different on these, okay? So this is what I came up with on these. So this is a jet shrub sprayer. Okay, and these are also adjustable just like the other side over there. But then these I had to shift the emitter forward because, like I said, I couldn't squeeze it in behind the tree. So now it sits in the front here. But the way I have it dialed is it also literally covers the entire circle perfectly and with plenty of volume of water. I mean, this is really putting out a nice stream all the way around this whole root zone of this tree. And also what's nice about this is you can clock them so that it misses the trunk. So see, this is, you can spin this also, just like I have them over there against the other ones. And then you can make that so that it just misses the trunk and keeps the trunk nice and clean and dry, whereas it definitely waters this entire area nicely. Okay, and like I said, you can dial the pressure. So like, this is a citrus tree. He needs a lot more water, a lot larger area. I've got a mango tree down here. This one, and he's not that old, so the roots aren't that wide. So I got this one dialed down to a smaller pattern, so it hits more of that root zone area and doesn't come quite out in here because the roots aren't out here yet. As the tree grows, I can just adjust this up and send that water out a little further, and it'll cover that zone. Okay, so these don't put out quite as much volume as the half sprayers, and I think they have an extra tree on them. So these, it's being cut, the volume is being cut. So these I have to let them run longer to get the same amount of volume of water approximately as the ones that gets the house, or as much as I can approximate. Yeah, so these are nice. They just cover that whole area, keep that nice and cool and wet. Look at that. Just wonderful, wonderful black soil. And see, they just keep it nice and moist like I like it. Okay, so that's these guys, and that seems to have worked really good. So these run for 15 minutes. So I've got, that one runs 10, and then this side runs 15, and then that, or I'm sorry, runs 12, and then that side runs 12. Now the other thing that you have to keep in mind for is pressure. So as you get further away from the source, your pressure is going to be reduced. So as we get out here further on the run, since this isn't a loop, then that would mean that this one down here at the very end would get less water than the ones that were up nearer to the source. So the way to fix that is to just turn down those emitters that are up there closer to the source and leave these down here on full blast, so that you'll eventually get everything nice and even. Because you want everybody to get that same nice stream of water. Okay? Everybody. So that's what that sprayer looks like. And man, it just covers that perfectly. That couldn't be any better. All right, so that's these. And this next set of 12 is the same, so I don't need to turn those on and show you those. Let me turn this one off. Okay. So we'll start back down here on the end, and we'll kind of go over these trees and see how they've done from that from that consistency. It's basically, you've put them on a schedule where they know what's coming next. So if you get them on a watering schedule where they get watered every day or every other day, well, then they know what to expect, and they'll set their growth habit and pattern by that watering. So if I'm watering every day, well, then they know it's coming tomorrow and they have no reason to stop growing. So they're just gonna keep growing and keep consistently growing, and they have no reason to stop. Another thing to point out is all these different plants that we're gonna go over, they're on literally the same watering schedule. So you see that they get the same amount of water, the same time period every day, all these plants, and you'll see that they exist perfectly together on this time schedule, and that they don't need different watering schedules or whatnot. They just need consistency. That's really the main thing. The other thing to point out is that these are out on this espalier wall where they get the full sun. Like, they don't get a break at all. They get the full sun, and they're strapped to this metal fencing, this espalier. And so they're doing pretty good out here, and they've done way better since I put them on that consistent watering schedule. The other thing that I would like to point out is my water comes out extremely cold, and it comes out right off the bat cold. Like, I don't even get that 2 seconds of hot water on these. It comes out immediately cold, and it's got to be near 60 degrees. It's like the coldest water. Like, you couldn't get in it. Like, if you fill the pool with it, like, it'd be too cold to get in. So it comes out freezing cold, and I don't really know why, because the pipe's underneath the street, and then it runs, well, underneath my yard, of course, and then through the house and through all the pipes. But the pipes are kept cool. I mean, for the most part, a lot of it's either buried or it's in here with the tree well where the grass is and the moisture and the coolness. So like, this pipe really doesn't heat up either. I mean, there's a little bit of water that's left in it from the last irrigation that might heat up a little bit, but it comes out so fast, and then it's mixed with that cold water so quickly that it cools it almost instantly down to cold by the time it gets to the roots. The other reason I chose, so I chose 1 o'clock to start this irrigation schedule, and the reason I chose 1 o'clock is to make sure that I fit in all my timers, because I'm going to be watering from 1 o'clock, probably 1 o'clock to 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and if I'm running each valve or each station every 10 to 15 minutes on that schedule, well, I'm probably going to have 16 to 20 valves. So in order to get them all in their time frame period, I have to start at 1 and go to that 1 to 4, which is the window that these guys really appreciate the help, because that's their hottest, thirstiest time period. I mean, I do water at night because that's really the only opportunity that I have to water, but I prefer to water during the day because that's when they can make the most use of that water, and it's going to help boost their metabolism, which is what we want to get strong, because it's all about their metabolism and their root system, okay? So yeah, these trees, I mean, like these trees here, these are in the full sun, planted with concrete and rock all around them, and then they've got a metal wall behind them and they've got metal poles that they're strapped to, and they're just hugging it, you know? They're just hugging that wall, and they're seeing no bad side effects because I do keep them well irrigated. So it is really all about the water. So the major thing that I saw putting on this irrigation is I saw a lot of the trees that were going into summer stalling, which is what I really don't like to happen on these trees, because trees are not dormant. Like, they're not stagnant. They don't just sit there, okay? So they're either going up in health or they're declining in health. They're doing one or the other, but they're not just existing. So if you've got a tree that's not actively growing, like see this, the active new grow tips, well, then it's stalled. And then if it's stalled, then it can either decline and start to die, which is what happens to these plants over the summer, because if they're already stalling here in the beginning of summer, by the time they get cooked all summer, well then, yeah, they go into that stalling situation. So you want to have new active growth all the time on these plants like you see here. Okay, so I'll give you an example of one that is stalled, and hopefully this one will kick up here in a minute, is this pluot. So I don't know if you can see it, but this pluot is just stopped. Like, it's gone terminal. Let's see here. See the end of the branch there? Every one of them is the same. And so we don't want that, because they'll decline over the summer if this is the situation. So this one hasn't kicked into gear yet, but I'm hoping it will here in the next few days from having this irrigation. But it's only been a week, and to see such surprising results. So like this pear tree, these are Asian pears, multi-graft Asian pears. I mean, they just shot up all this new growth. And a lot of this was, I wasn't able to get out here and hand water these guys enough. And so by them getting that timed irrigation, I mean, just lush and beautiful. And you guys know that pears, they suffer from the heat. They turn black. These cook black. It's not fire blade, it's just them burning up. And look at this, the leaves are just perfect on this pear. Even these ones that are back here by the metal wall, I mean, they're just absolutely perfect. And and active. So see, he's active. Same on this one. This is a 5-in-1 peach. Just shot up all this new growth and just completely active everywhere. Every tip is active, which is good because this is a multi-graft. You want them all to be growing and good. Okay, citrus, same thing. I mean, you can just tell by that big flush of growth sticking out there. Look at these, just big, beautiful, crazy big green leaves. New growth, and this thing probably hasn't grown in 6 months. I mean, you can see his older stuff. Yeah, it's kind of looking whatever, but the new, from having all that extra water, I mean, it's just brand new branches. Like I'm gaining branches here. Boom, 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 boom. So yeah, citrus. Of course, he liked the extra water. This is a black apricot. So same thing. I mean, you can even see where he was stalling out, starting to stall out. Kicked in that water irrigation now, and now every single tip on this apricot is now active. Okay, so pink guava started plumping up all these fruits. Started to make all these guys nice and big, and this thing's just full of them. Absolutely stuffed full of fruit. And new growth, new tips. That's what I'm looking for. That's what I want to see. Okay, aprium. Same thing. I mean, you can see how stalled he was. All this new growth. Like 6 inches of new growth in like a week from just having water, extra water to him. The plum, I got him not too long ago. He is stalled out, but I'm hoping to kick him into grow gear here. Actually, wait, here we go. Yeah, he's gotten some. There we go. Man, the sun's bright. Okay, plum, he got so big, and the peach got so big, and the fig got so big that I just had to cut those guys down again. They were just getting absurd. Okay, mango, really good example. So see all these curled up leaves? These guys that are like, oh my gosh. Should we blare out some of that sunlight? See how curled up these guys are? Well, the new stuff from the irrigation, of course, bam, bam, bam. All new beautiful leaves. Just because I couldn't get out here and water these enough. Look at that new growth. Brand new flushes of new growth. Okay, apple, same thing. He must have put on 6 inches. 6 inches in the last week. And just new growth tips everywhere. So this is a gala, and he's just all new growth. Same with this one, the Buddha's hand. It's hard to get really good leaves on these. These are just a more difficult citrus, but he's got some nice leaves, and he's got some new growth starting. Fig, this thing was pretty much just sitting here. Now he's locked onto his new growth. Pulled him out of stall. It's white guava. Same thing, new growth. And just loaded full of fruit too. He's gonna be quite packed full this year. Okay, so pear. So this pear, he was stalling. So see, he was going into his stall, but that has brought him out of that. And he is just now starting to push. Some new growth. Same on this plum. Activated him. Got 4 inches in a week. This Barbados cherry, he just exploded because of it. This got huge, all new growth. Peach, this is a red baron. These guys don't like the heat. These guys, not your normal peach. These suffer a little bit. in the heat, they're not as hardy as normal peaches are, but they still work here, and this one's doing good. It's got all new growth, no stalling. He looks good. Mulberry, dwarf mulberry, same, all new growth. At the top, just push tons of growth. An olive, same thing. He's got all new growth, and he is just really just kind of filled with olives to be this big. Okay, now let's go look at these ones up there at the house. All right, these dwarf mangoes. These guys don't grow very often, or grow very much. You can see the last week has started to push new growth on him, and especially this other one, and started to fill in some of those bare bone areas that mangoes like to get. So he's pushing a bunch of new growth, just try to push a bunch. Now he does get a lot of afternoon sun, so this one would benefit from a little bit of shade cloth, but you can see what the water just activated the growth and just turned that on. Same with this pink guava, new growth, full of fruit. Guama chill, he's got all new stuff. Now this is the most interesting one. So this is a Mamie sapote, and this one probably hasn't grown in like 8 months. Like, this is the slowest growing thing on the planet, I believe. And so it's had this original set of leaves for like a year or a year and a half. And so what that water did was, boom, it just put on a whole new flush of growth. Look at this, it's like a fountain. And look at the color and the intensity on this. Look at this, just boom, brand new one up here. He's even got a new branch back here, look. This was from putting it on irrigation. Thing didn't do anything for like 8 months. I put it on irrigation and new branches. Just beautiful, just like a fountain. Look at that. That's a direct result of that water. There is nothing else that did this. That timed water. Pineapple guava just rocking. Cherry tree. So this is another good one. These are Bings, these two. Bing cherries right next to each other. And they're pretty much in the full sun now, and they definitely are above the roof. And look at these guys. They're just kicking all kinds of butt out here in 109 degrees because it activated all those new little